Welcome to the very first inaugural episode of Ambitious Millennial Woman, the space where I talk with clients, prospective clients, friends, loved ones, women I admire about how they are building their careers and lives, pulling back the curtain behind their very impressive, shining resumes to understand how they're making decisions, how they're going about their day-to-day lives, how they're dealing with their mindsets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm so thrilled to introduce you to our first guest, Marishka DeToy, who, for anyone watching on video, you might be able to tell why I asked her to join. She's my identical twin sister, and we did show up here today wearing almost exactly the same thing. But more importantly, she is a partner at a big law firm and has a full, rich life with a lot going on. We're here today to talk and hear a little bit more about how she thinks about her career and all the other facets of life. Marishka, or Bimi, I should say, as I've been calling you for probably the last 30 years, give us your intro. Tell us about your career thus far. I'd say the non-suitable for work LinkedIn version and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I guess a lot of the how and why of my current position probably starts in 2009 when I graduated, like so many of us did, into the Great Recession. Took a couple of non-paying internships, lived in your bedroom for a number of months, and finally made my way to my first sort of big girl job, which was making $28,000 a year working as a PR assistant in New York. I worked in PR for about 2.5 years and came across a number of lawyers and law firms throughout my workings there. I was in the issues and crisis management at a global PR firm. Over the course of that experience, for better or worse, I realized that lawyers were the true decision makers in the room. So through fits and starts, decided to go to law school at 25, which was later than a lot of my peers had done, that I think really set me up to be a successful lawyer. I was a fine student in law school. Some people hate law school. It was a nice break after working in PR for 3 years. But I always knew that I wanted to work in big law, at least for a couple of years. I had substantial law school loans that I had to pay off, and that was obviously the quickest and most expedient way to do it. But I thought, oh, big law for 2 or 3 years, pay down my loans, and then go on my merry way. And that'll never be sort of the end goal or the long-term plan. I quickly learned that you need far more than 2 or 3 years while living in New York City to actually pay off your law school loans. I ended up staying a little bit longer than I planned, and I feel like I got past the hump of the true tedium and making signature pages at 12 a.m. and being up all night waiting for printer proofs and stuff like that. I actually started to be counseling my clients and mentoring and training younger associates, and I had a ton of flexibility and autonomy. And I started to realize that big law, obviously challenging, can be stressful, can be all of the things people think it is, also gives back in a lot of ways that people don't fully appreciate. And I think I would have a hard time replicating at other jobs. I also found an area of law that really fit what I like to do, which is doing capital markets, which is very, very different from really anyone's stereotypical idea of what being a lawyer is. I'm not reading contracts all day. I actually hate reading contracts. So I found an area of law that really played to my strengths and suited my abilities, which is basically reading and writing. I can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, while you were talking, my mic fell off the stand, dropped, and apparently turned off.
Okay.
What? Well, look at my stand.
No.
So it was fascinating for me to hear that because I've had a front row seat to the journey, but I think not actually sat down and have heard you describe the arc like that. And I think there's a couple things that I heard you say that are relevant and relatable to a lot of people. The first few years in any role, especially in professional services, but the first few years right after grad school are just a grind. It's almost like your first job right out of undergrad. You have to work the long hours, you have to do the grunt work, you have to prove yourself. And then as you get older, you get to do the more interesting work, be at the table, do the advising, make the decisions. There can be a lot of benefits from the bigger firms or the purely corporate firms or the large established employers. And then I think what you didn't say, but I've observed over the past few years, is you've also found a really great group of people, both in terms of peer colleagues and then also having a sponsor. Do you have anything that you would add or build off of that?
Well, I would say quite candidly, it seems very timely that recession talk and economy talk is very top of mind right now,
Yeah.
but I probably would not have made it through those first 3 or 4 years if I didn't have a very healthy fear of A, not being able to find another job, or B, being laid off, which I think is a sort of
Yeah.
direct result of graduating into the Great Recession. And it's actually something that a lot of my peers, we just talk about very openly. We were so glad to have a job. And so I think that kept me there and made me grateful for what I was doing. Just gave me perspective, not to make this a generational thing, but I think a lot of the people who are starting out now prior to 2025 have graduated into pretty boom time years. And so they don't have this, I don't want to say fear of losing their jobs, but they don't have that like driving uncertainty that keeps them in their seats. I do think that I fell into a great firm that was a great fit for me, sort of by dumb luck. As you know, I moved to Boston in 2018. Again, still thinking I was on my way out of big law, and I moved to Boston because me and my now husband wanted to be closer to our families. I realized it was much easier to lateral to Boston as a big law associate than go out into this new city where I didn't know anyone, didn't know what the industry was, didn't know what the companies were, and try to find an in-house position. So again, I went into my current job where I've been now for 7 years with a very much like, oh, this is temporary. Let's see how it goes, like a means to an end. And it ended up, I work in capital markets for biotech companies, which happens to be a great area of the law to work in because your clients are really nice. They're doing nice things for
Mm-hmm.
humanity. They're playing an essential role in drug development and saving people's lives. And it was something that I never knew existed. Again, it's funny looking back, thinking about how impulsive I and my husband were at the time, but we just had the faith of 30-year-olds that things would always work
Yeah.
out and we would be fine. And that has very much been true for us. I think sitting here at 37, I probably would have pondered the decision a little bit more. But yeah, I think I've been very, very lucky to find a firm and a group of people where I really feel like I fit in and can sort of bring my true self to work every day.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I learned from different experiences in my career too is once you find those people, there's real benefit in stay. And our generation move around so much more than any other generation. But it's like once you find the good people, there's definitely benefits to holding on, building credibility, deepening those relationships.
And it's not easy to find. And again, I was not
Yeah.
strategic or thoughtful about it. I don't want to give myself too much credit. It was honestly just pure dumb luck. But any times that things have been overwhelming or difficult or stressful, the thing that has kept me in my current role is just the people, which I don't think I would be able to replicate. And it's
Yeah.
probably something that if I ever do leave, I would be looking for the rest of my career.
Yeah. That's awesome. I gave you questions to prep for this conversation. And one of those questions was a little bit cliche and maybe not that differentiated, but it's the reflection of you have gotten to a point in your career. You are a lawyer at a big law firm. So we can say that you've effectively broken through that glass ceiling or you've skipped the broken rung. And we've talked about a few reasons for that. One, you push past the few years that are so hard, that pressure point, right? After grad school, you have great people around you, you find the work interesting. What else would you say has made this work? Or what else would you say is why you are where you are today?
I think that we live what we see, and our mother was always a working mother. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and so it was never a question to me that I was always going to work. And somewhere along the way, I became very ambitious. I think for a long time, I was unfortunately fueled by a very healthy dose of imposter syndrome, which again, a lot of my peers talking to them also fueled them as well, which is kind of crazy looking around because they're also highly accomplished and
Yeah.
highly successful. But I think that fear of failure and feeling like you're not good enough can keep you going for a very, very long time. I mean, big law capital markets is an incredibly male dominated field. And as a young woman coming up through the ranks, there's just a natural sense of I don't belong here, or I have to work twice as hard to prove myself. That's sort of what got me to the partner stage. I
Yeah.
had my first child right after I made partner at my current firm. And that helped flip a switch for me. None of this is good or healthy, but
Everyone gets their motivation from different places and different sources. Yeah.
I was able to flip a switch. I was able to have
Yeah.
a little distance and a little perspective instead of getting an email on a Saturday morning. And even if I don't respond to it right away, like I'm still thinking about it. I'm thinking about how I'm going to respond. I'm thinking about who I need to talk to respond. Now, when I see an email on a Saturday morning, I'm at the playground or I'm otherwise occupied so that I can't even devote that same mental space to those types of emails that I used to previously. And so I think that has freed up
Mm.
mental capacity to put a little bit of remove between my self-worth and my job and to just focus my attention and my energy elsewhere. And I think that's what's kept me going past that point where a lot of people decide that big law isn't working for them or whatever their high-powered career is. I saw some statistic on LinkedIn the other day that said that the majority of women that leave the workplace leave after their first child because for whatever reason they feel that it's no longer serving them. And I actually found that it was a nice balance because
Yeah.
work keeps me from being too obsessed about my daughter, and my daughter keeps me conversely from being too obsessive about work. And I'm also
Yeah.
at the point in my career where I can really set boundaries and
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, I'm my own boss on a lot of things, which really helps immensely.
I think that makes such a difference, and we probably don't talk about it enough. But once you get more senior in law, it's probably somewhere after being a fourth or fifth year associate, you start running your own deals. And in the non-law corporate world that most of my clients come from, it's once you get past that manager or senior manager level and you get to start setting the priorities, setting the pace, and working in your own way, it can make things so much easier. I know it did for me, and it clearly has for you.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I realized much earlier, but again, as you were saying, sort of around that fourth or fifth year, is that I was in control of my destiny for not 100% of my time, but for 95% of my time. And so by working to deadlines and working ahead and planning in advance and trying to be strategic about work, I avoided so many fire drills. And once I could sort of run my own deals and just take control of everything myself, things got so much better. I don't work this much anymore, but I was a period where I was working from like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night, but only Monday through Thursday, and then Friday log off at a normal time. And then I didn't work on the weekends because I don't like to work on the weekends.
Yeah.
I just created my own schedule that worked for me and was sustainable. There's a lot of people that aren't thinking that they're in control of their own
Yeah.
situation, and they're letting the hits just keep on coming, and they're letting the work sort of roll over them. And they're working to 2 a.m. or they're working on Saturday afternoons. And that is something that, again, was a light bulb moment for me that I think really changed things for me.
Can you say more about that and specifically how you made that transition? Did you feel like you had to have some conversations or did you just shift your ways of working?
I think I proved myself enough
Yeah.
that there was no one above me to cause those sort of immediate fire drills of
Yeah.
saying like, oh, I got this email from the client on Monday and it's Friday afternoon and I forgot to forward it to you guys, but I need this by like Sunday afternoon. I was talking to a friend at work the other day and she said on Easter Sunday, she got an email from a partner at noon who said, please review this document and return it to me by 4 p.m. this afternoon. And that to me is just so disrespectful of other people's time.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful of your own time because unless you're working on some sort of massive public M&A deal, I can guarantee you there's no reason to have that sort of timeline or day of the week work. And so I just started out by being incredibly organized. So I knew what the landscape looked like for the next couple of weeks. And I could say, okay, I'm going to do this day so I can avoid doing it Thursday night at 11 p.m. And another thing that I'm always trying to tell people, and again, this may be specific to big law, but you have to clear out your inbox of emails and you have to be done on to-dos before you log off at night. So your plate is just empty in the morning because otherwise you're going to wake up on a Wednesday morning and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to review this company's 10K. And you're going to get 6 other client emails before you've even had your coffee. And you're going to be buried in stuff that may actually be time
Yeah.
sensitive. And you're going to be sitting there with that 10K at 9 p.m. And you're going to say, oh, I wish I had done this last night when I had time. So again, it sounds maybe brutal, a little bit psychotic, but it was what worked for me. And I'm a little more lax these days. If I don't feel like doing something late at night, I'm not going to do it, but
Yeah.
that's my responsibility and I own that choice.
So yeah, I think what you're saying is as you get more senior, recognize that you control your own destiny a little bit more and then start to shape your destiny in the destination or the way that you want to head. Let's go back to the self-worth piece because we talked about pre-making partner, you were feeling imposter syndrome, you had to work hard, you always had to prove yourself. And so you could probably extrapolate what your self-worth may have been tied to your professional success and advancement. And then post-partner and post becoming a mother, your self-worth has shifted. How would you describe your self-worth today, or where does your self-worth come from?
My self-worth now comes from knowing that I'm very good at my job and that I feel like I've earned respect from others that I work with, both at my firm and at other firms, and also gratitude from clients that I've helped through difficult situations over the years. And then it's also comes from being present with my family and being involved and engaged with them. I've been back at work for almost 2+ years
Yeah.
now. I think the amount of times that I've had to unexpectedly miss a bedtime would probably be about a dozen, maybe less. And that's something that I've worked really hard to sort of carve out for myself. And so I think it's a mix of the two.
Any very specific tips or mindsets you would give a new mother right now who feels like she's skipping or hustling or stressing through bedtime frequently?
I will say that I'm always physically present.
Yeah.
There are times where there are things that I'm thinking about, and I may not want to read the third book or brush the teeth for the third time, or but I think showing up is important, especially when they're
Yeah.
young. I just opt out of a lot of the sort of societal pressure that
Yeah.
millennial women put on themselves to behave a certain way as a mother, to have aesthetic birthday parties and over the top Easter baskets, because that's the most recent thing that I can remember. And what I always tell myself is my daughter is thrilled to be hanging out with me and playing blocks or putting diapers on Mimi the baby or reading Goodnight Moon. And her happiness is not going to exponentially increase if she had an Easter basket full of candy that I don't even want her to be eating, or did like a perfectly choreographed Easter egg hunt. She's just very happy that I'm there and that her dad is there and her dog is there and her grandparents are there. And so she's content. She doesn't know that she's missing anything. She doesn't know to want anything. And the only reason we as mothers feel
Yeah.
inadequate or feel that we're missing something is because we're looking on social media and
Yeah.
seeing people who may not work or they have household staff putting on these elaborate birthday parties.
Or maybe they stayed up till 2 a.m. and broke their back to make it happen.
Exactly.
Or Meghan Markle blowing up balloon arches on her new TV
I
show.
found that show very aspirational. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. I'm about to go make some bath salts myself.
Yeah. When you retire. Yeah.
But I think for the most part, we're not thinking critically enough about why we feel so badly about ourselves and what we're doing.
Or the expectation, like the action you're taking to create the balloon arch or plan the really fancy first birthday party. Is it something that you have a desire for and your kid will appreciate, or is it just the expectation? And
Want to have those pictures and you want Instagram and that's what makes you happy, that's totally fine. But what I'm talking about is laying in bed at 10 p.m. and being scrolling through Instagram and being, oh, I forgot to order the birthday crown or whatever. That doesn't matter.
yeah, I have 2 points or questions that I want to make. The first is, will you tell us all about Molly's birthdays the past few years? Because I think leading up to Molly's first birthday, our family came to you and was like, what are we going to do to celebrate? What's the plan? What are we going to get her? And you had a very specific response that made me think twice about what our expectations were.
To be clear, going into Molly's first birthday, I was still a year postpartum and literally I could not physically or mentally take on another sort of project. But my view has always been that the birthday parties are not for the child, they're for the family and the pictures. And so it wasn't important to me. It actually would have stressed me out even more. And so I don't know exactly what you're getting at.
Well, it's fine. She's going to be fine. We don't
Yeah,
need
exactly.
it.
She's not
Yeah.
gonna, and not to be very cavalier or glib, but like she's not gonna remember. She's gonna remember that she was loved 365 days of the year, and that she was safe 365 days of the year. She's not gonna remember whether she had a smash cake with a balloon arch and a clown on September 9th.
100%. I know you made a very conscious choice before you entered this chapter of motherhood, before you gave birth, to say, I'm not going to do the mom guilt. How do you think you were even conscious about that, or how you made that decision about what was going to be in bounds versus out of bounds?
I think that being an avid Instagram consumer for the past 13 years and being fed mom blogs, and before I was a mother, I sort of just had a healthy sense of remove where I was, what is the point of this? Like, and again, maybe if I didn't work or had unlimited resources, maybe I would find self-worth in doing that too. So I don't want to yuck someone else's yum, but for me, I just always felt that if I could do what made me comfortable to know that my daughter was happy, safe, and flourishing, then that was enough. And there are times where I have to travel for work for 10 days at a time. And I have an upcoming work trip where I'll be gone for a number of days. And those are incredibly hard. And I miss her, especially as she's getting older and she's more conscious that I'm gone. But I don't feel guilty because my job is also what provides for the family. And so I don't really look at work as something optional that I'm doing that takes away from spending time with her all day, because I would never be doing that. I just think that there's societal pressure, but there's a lot of like internalized hatred that I think people have of themselves and not being the perfect mother. And I don't get it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing, because hopefully you're going to inspire at least one person listening to this conversation to just approach it differently, or to apply some healthier skepticism.
I
So,
also deleted Instagram,
oh, I didn't know
out of
that.
sight, out of
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. You're creating your own highlight reel of what's important to you. Let's switch tacks a little. One thing that mom and I always think, looking at your life and tracking it via group texts during the day, is it seems like you maybe have more hours in the day than other people, because we have talked about in this conversation your big law career, being a very active and present mother, and you work out multiple times a week, you read voraciously, you love interior design and have decorated multiple homes for your family, you see your friends frequently. I know a lot of people in this millennial woman cohort find doing one of those things hard, and you're able to do that and more. And so what do you think has driven or fueled that?
I'm not sure I'm doing all of those things all at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the answer too.
But I think, again, just going back to my job, and one of the reasons that I've stuck with it is that I do have an incredible amount of flexibility and autonomy. And so if I want to wake Molly up, get her off to school, walk the dog, then go to a workout class, and then log on, I can do that as long as I'm meeting my hourly requirements, as long as I'm responsive to my clients, as long as I'm
Mhm.
responsible internally who need me. Alternatively, if I want to go to bed at 8 o'clock and wake up at 6 a.m. because I'm much more productive in the morning. Sometimes I wake up at 5 a.m. because I'm going through a busy time at work and I'll just like fire off a bunch of emails. I think something I realized as I've gotten older is really leaning into my chronotype, mostly because I've been
Yeah,
forced to, and I
me
just
too.
get
Yeah.
so tired at night that I'm not even functioning. And so if I'm gonna get in bed and watch White Lotus and wake up at 5 or 6 and shoot off some emails, I would much prefer to do that than to suffer through until 11 o'clock at night and then blow my morning workout.
I'm laughing right now because you're basically explaining to all my clients why they frequently get emails from me at 7:28 in the morning.
Right. And it's not because I'm
Yeah.
working around the clock. It's
Yeah.
I'm figuring out what works for me and my family and try to maintain a modicum of fitness and read a book and do all of that.
And you're leaning into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with this question that I ask so many of my clients. Anything that you thought that I would ask or has come up for you as we've been talking that I haven't asked yet that you think is relevant?
I think when the last question you just asked me, I may not feel a lot of mom guilt, but I feel a lot of dog mom guilt because our dog is not getting walked as much as she was pre-baby. And that's something I would love to spend more time doing. No one's ever going to have a perfect work-life balance. I know people have moved away from that or they're sort of having it all. But even if you think someone is balancing everything, there's probably going to be some ball that's
Yeah.
being dropped or some area that they wish that they could improve. So I think we just all need to stop comparing ourselves to others.
Say that again for the folks louder in the back. Yeah. So you have the mic to convey something or share a final message with almost 10,000 millennial women. What do you want them to take away from your experience or what you've learned along the way?
Think that we need to collectively as a generation look at why we're so unhappy as mothers and working mothers. Again, I'm speaking in broad strokes and don't want to overgeneralize. But I think if we took off some of that external pressure, there probably are ways for people to be happier and more content with their current situation. Another thing, I'm not going to sign my daughter up for sports until she's 5. Frankly, I'm so busy during the week that I don't want to spend my weekend mornings going to a soccer game or going to a dance class. I don't know. I think she'll be fine. Maybe she's not going to play Division 1 soccer.
She's not going to make the LPGA tour.
But
Don't tell her
that's gonna be
dad.
sad that she's not
Yeah.
gonna be a professional golfer. But I'll be happier and she'll be happier because of it. And we can go to the playground and we can read books. We're also over programmed. I saw Emily Oster speak at a gathering in my town probably about a year ago now, and she said that her kids are only in 1 or 2 after school activities on purpose because she thinks that people are way too overscheduled these days. That has really resonated and stuck with me. And if we're listening to anyone, it should be her. I would just encourage people to take a little bit of the foot off the gas and a little bit of the pressure off.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.